Thanks so much for joining us and for coming to Sales Machine today. We're going to spend about the next 25 minutes sharing the Salesforce Playbook and essentially want to give you insights into how we structure, how we manage, and how we enable our sales teams. It's an honor to sort of follow Dave Radinsky, who, as many of you know, literally helped write the sales playbook at Salesforce. And if you've ever read Mark Benioff's book, Behind the Cloud, there's a little sales insert. So I think Dave talked a lot about the tactics that you can take if you're thinking about how to engage with customers. And what I think I'll spend the next 25 minutes doing is how do we bridge both the process and the technology to really think about how to leverage the platform that we have to optimize your business for us on our path to $20 billion. As you've learned all day today, the world of selling has gotten more complex and more challenging. 79% of customers want their sales rep to be a trusted advisor. And that is no small feat, as many of you know, and that sort of phrase, trusted advisor, is a very tricky phrase. How do you get to trusted advisor status? At the same time, 71% of customers are saying that there's a chance that they may take their business elsewhere. This was from our Salesforce's 2016 State of Sales research. And so the real question is how do you bridge the gap with what our customers are demanding and create this customer-centric environment, but also make your quota, grow your business, and find success? The good news in all of this is that sales teams have more power. And so in that same research, 69% of respondents said that their sales teams have more influence within their companies. And at Salesforce, we are a customer-centric, customer-obsessed company. And so our sales teams really function as the feet on the street and really gathering the feedback from all of our customers that we then take back to product marketing and ultimately into product to help drive it. So I'll spend the next little bit taking you through sort of 4 key elements on how we actually run our business at Salesforce, again, both from a process and from a technology perspective. Those 4 start with, what does your go-to-market strategy look like? How do you design territories to optimize for productivity, for AE making their quota, and ultimately for growth? Secondly, how do you build a pipeline machine? And I think of this, and I talk to a lot of prospective customers and clients about this, but I think about this on the spectrum of lead to cash, right? So I know there have been other sessions today where we've been talking about the importance and the synergy of sales and marketing getting along and being on the same page. But I would argue that this needs to go a step further, which we'll talk about. But for us, having CPQ native in our platform and being able to really, from the time of engagement, whatever channel that happens on, all the way through order management and then through the renewal experience, really having that be a seamless experience. The third is being data obsessed. So yes, we have a platform, it's called Salesforce, and we use it to the ends of the earth. But it's really understanding what your goals are, and then aligning what the metrics are along with those, and then figuring out the areas for improvement. And then finally, how do you take all of this together and really have this be the opportunity to drive growth and retention for the account execs in your organization? Because my strong belief is that given that we've put this process and technology together, we've created an incredibly strong bench for the future growth of our AEs within the business. So let's start with the go-to-market strategy. This is the current pyramid of how we align our sales teams today at Salesforce. And this has evolved, right? So part of what I'd love to encourage you to be thinking about is no matter what the size of your business is, whether you're just starting out or whether you're at the scale of Salesforce at 25,000 employees, this can absolutely be relevant. And for us, over time, we've evolved to sort of a 3-tiered strategy, which is the SMB market, which I look after, the commercial space, which includes mid-market and commercial, and then finally the enterprise space. And by segmenting, we find that it drives more accountability. And so further segmentation means that you're more accountable for all the different customers in that space. And then you can delineate between a geographic-based territory and a named territory. In the SMB space, reps will have a geographic-based territory, both with existing customers and prospects in our space. We have the AEs take care of both of those. And then all the way up to the enterprise space, where an enterprise account executive may have one account so that they can go deep and wide, which obviously is necessary for driving enterprise-wide strategy. The next thing we do is that we literally start our territory management process 4 or 5 months before the end of our fiscal year. And by doing territory planning early, it allows us to take a data-driven approach, but also engage our sales teams in the process to make sure that we get it right. And essentially, the model for us is across 3 areas, which is what does that company size look like? We do have 3 verticals today, being financial services, healthcare, and retail. And then what is the product and technology specialization that you need? Acquisition products, whatever the case may be, what specialized reps do we need? And then finally, what does that selling process look like? And we then can map that geographically. So in my business, there may be 50 account executives in small business who cover the state of California and 5 who cover the state of Maine. And by creating equal territories, maybe not based on the number of accounts, but on the potential for those territories, we can move those territories into our hubs and create regional efficiencies so that people are spending more time selling and less time traveling. So the second piece that I mentioned was building this pipeline machine, right? And so you have your territory, and now you want to know how you're going to take that territory and really drive the business again all the way from lead to cash. This stat was absolutely staggering to me, but Velocify did a study, 391% higher odds of closing a deal if you engage with a customer in the first minute. And so for us, that is both leveraging our SDR organization and also all of the technology that goes along with leads for us in the marketing automation space, putting that prospect on a journey. So getting to them quickly, but putting them on a journey if they're not ready to go through a selling process at that given moment, and a drip campaign, if you will, so that we're staying in touch and passing those leads to the sales organization at the right time. The next piece is, and this was a big transformation for us internally, was making sure that everyone was speaking the same language across marketing and across sales. And so essentially, we're measuring the business in the Salesforce application, again, from the time of lead, but we, as we track those leads all the way through the life cycle, can understand the activity against those, the pipeline generated against those accounts, and ultimately the ACV, or the annual contract value, which is how we measure revenue internally. Once you have the data, you then really need to sort of take the art and the science of it. And so I think of account planning as sort of the combination of art and science. The science, in our world, from an account planning perspective, we use propensity to buy. And so if I have a Sales Cloud customer who's doing quoting and they've integrated a solution into our Sales Cloud, but they haven't procured our CPQ solution, that's a good target for SteelBrick to go after and talk to you about CPQ, right? So we do that across all of our product sets. But the other side of the equation on account planning, and particularly at the enterprise level, which is where I sort of grew up in the early days of my career before Salesforce, is really how do you get out of the mode of that PowerPoint that you create one time at the beginning of the year and is completely static, right? And for us, we acquired a company called Quip in the productivity space. And how do you create a collaborative account plan, which we can now link to opportunities in Salesforce, and have this be a living, breathing document, whether it's a territory plan or an account plan. And so again, you're taking sort of the best of the data that exists in Salesforce and other tools, and also putting context around it and then collaborating on it. The last piece, which I mentioned on CPQ, for us is sort of if you go to the other end of that lead to cash spectrum, is how do you create efficiency and scale? And in our world, we're moving so fast, we do so many transactions in my particular business, that one of the ways that we did this was by integrating CPQ. And that, from an opportunity and pipeline management perspective, gives us better accuracy, because at a certain sales stage, the products that are flowing and the revenue dollar amounts that are flowing are coming directly from that quote. But then also that's what's kicking off the end of the process, from e-signature into order management, and ultimately opening a renewal opportunity to be tracked by the renewal organization. So that just gives you a little bit of perspective. And now, as we think about, okay, we have our account plans, we have our go-to-market strategy, how do we think about leveraging data? Again, both to run the business and also to motivate sellers. So for me, I think that comes down to a couple of things. The first of which is setting goals. And if you're in my business, which is we're closing every single day, or in the enterprise business where it is a more quarterly cadence, whatever the cadence is, it's setting what those targets are for everyone in the organization. And so my account executives each have a pipe gen target per month that they are tracking against, and we make it very clear in our dashboards what those goals are. Let me just comment on dashboards for a minute. I spend a lot of time with customers and prospective customers thinking about how to drive adoption of CRM. Because at the end of the day, CRM is about a lot more than just technology. You need to get folks in the organization to adopt the technology. And dashboards are just a reflection of all the data that lives in Salesforce, and so you need that underlying data. But I tell people, once we can master the adoption, get your dashboards. Have them be snazzy, have them be collaborative, have them be competitive, but drive everyone there. Because that is the visualization layer that everyone, whether you're a seller, you're in operations, or you're an executive, can rally around to make sure that you're really focused on those same goals. Once you have your goals, then you have to measure success. And for us in the SMB business and across Salesforce, we do this, we call it the AMP dashboard, which essentially is measuring activities, meetings or on-sites, right? Meaningful engagements with our customers. You heard Dave say to walk the halls. And then finally, pipeline. That AMP dashboard and those AMP metrics are what's going to feed ACV for us. So we have the formula, which is activity leads to pipeline, which leads to ACV, and across Salesforce, we are measuring against that. And sometimes it's not always perfect, and sometimes it's not working. And so the question becomes, how do you leverage dashboards and the reports and the insights to know where you want to improve and how you want to improve? We have a dashboard internally. It gets sent out to pretty much everyone every single week called Clean Your Room. And if you go back to sort of like how do you start from the lead all the way through cash and integrate that approach with marketing and sales, a lot of this is, are these leads being called? How many times have those opportunities pushed? Where are we with marketing events? What pipe has come out of Dreamforce, right? And so the Clean Your Room is not supposed to be necessarily a wall of shame, but it's really bringing a culture of transparency and a culture of visibility. And I think if you come at it from a place of wanting to genuinely help your organization, these types of dashboards can be helpful, and we do use them for coaching opportunities. Lastly on this theme is this idea of creating a virtual water cooler. And so there are tons of collaboration tools out there. I'm not going to stand here and tell you you should only use Chatter, whether it's Slack or Chatter or GChat or Quip or whatever the case may be. For us internally at Salesforce, the opportunity to sort of swarm around information, we use Chatter extensively to be able to create a virtual water cooler and to be able for all of our colleagues in San Francisco to understand best practices of what's going on in New York. And I think one of the most powerful things about this, whether your organization has adopted Chatter or not, is to think about in-context collaboration. Because I don't know about you, but there are so many different channels that you're getting information on. When I can rally around an opportunity and chatter in that opportunity and get real-time updates in that opportunity and have a conversation, whether it's, again, going back to Dave, connecting the dots, that conversation is happening in that opportunity. And so you've created an institutional memory of that conversation exactly where, let's say that opportunity deads out and a year later a BDR wants to go prospect to them, they know who knows whom, right? And so you're obviously going to track activity, but it's really hard to track the conversation. And for us, that's been a lot of the power. Finally, I think of all of this, again, the process, the technology, the collaboration, as the opportunity to really cultivate talent and to grow your bench. And so when you're thinking about sales teams, you're thinking about, if I'm hiring from the outside, what does the ramp time look like? If I'm hiring and promoting from within, can I accelerate that ramp time? And what are the skill gaps? And for us, I think that when I think about one of the things I'm most proud of at my time at Salesforce, that's where I put a lot of energy, because we really have created this opportunity to promote from within. And there's a very clear path from SDR to BDR into the account executive role in the SMB space. And then people can continue to sell up market, or they can make a move into a different product area, or they can make a move into management, which is what I did personally once I had decided that I was ready to make the move into management. And again, if you go back to kind of the process piece of this, this is all sort of an integrated approach, right? We have integrated LMS, we're doing coaching in the app, right? And so we're making it, again, part of that end-to-end training ground and training experience. And that is what's really allowing us to allow for promotions, which we know our account executives tell us, in every employee survey, they want transparency on what it takes to get promoted. And we also know that the ramp time is going to be significantly improved, because these are people that have lived and breathed the lingo, the process, and the technology. So just in summary, and then I'll take some questions. Again, if you kind of think about the 4 elements that I spoke about, this go-to-market strategy, so up front, making sure that you're getting it right in terms of what does territory look like and how do I segment my market. It's going to be a very different conversation for the 50-person startup than it is for Salesforce at this point. But it still needs to be strategized on, and there's still a very healthy dialogue to have on that, especially as you then, over time, because it took us a while, but over time, think about, do I do verticals? Do I want people focused on selling new business and account management? Those are all really big decisions to make. And if you can do them in bite-sized chunks over time, but sort of build and iterate, you can get off to a faster start. Speaking of faster start, the big piece for us is that we do all that territory planning before the turn of the crank, so that after all the data has refreshed, our fiscal year ends, end of January, so by the middle of February, we're off to the races, right? And everyone knows what they're going after and can get started on that account planning. From the pipeline machine perspective, again, I was thinking about this in the context of lead to cash, but I really think there's such a unique opportunity right now. Sales and marketing is sort of finally having the same conversation. The technology is finally talking to each other in a much more consolidated way. We've done a whole host of work ourselves, having bought ExactTarget and Pardot, integrating those into our own platform, and really allowing for that conversation on what does it look like, what does a good lead look like, right? And then how do I take that all the way through the pipeline? The data piece is the fun piece. Again, once you do the hard work to get all of this into one common platform, how do I use that data to optimize my business and to really motivate sellers? They want the leaderboards, right? They want to know where they are against their annual targets, against Hawaii, but just as important in our case for our club trip, but just as importantly, we really make real-time decisions based on that data. And I think that's the opportunity that every firm has, is to really take that data and make actionable decisions. And then finally, that opportunity to really build your bench and to use this entire process and the technology to allow for that ease of path from all the way from SDR all the way through enterprise seller or into management, because you've created that seamless experience and you know that it's going to be faster for those individuals. So thank you so much. I'm happy to take some questions. If you have questions, there are 2 mics over there, and I'll also be around afterwards. Any questions in the crowd? Yes?
That was excellent. In your conclusion, you briefly mentioned hunter, farmer versus hybrid.
Yes.
Can you comment a little bit about how Salesforce has executed on that for each of the 3 different business segments that you're focused on?
Sure. What kind of business are you in?
In information services.
Okay, great. So we have approached it from the perspective of, we have a customer success organization. It's called Customers for Life. And so we have CSMs that are tasked with post-sales, call it consulting, and they're really focused squarely on adoption, right? So their metrics do align to a lot of the things that you think about when you think about account management. But we also have found, and if you're a Salesforce customer, you know this, that most of our existing customers are ripe for adding on product, because we've made so many acquisitions and we've grown and we've added so much functionality, that for us, we do get lift by having our account executives who get paid on new business, but who look after both, helping our clients really be successful with what they have, and then create roadmaps on how they can grow with the platform. So we do have the CSM role, but that role is sort of a non-quota bearing role and really focused squarely on adoption. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Sure, so the question was, what's the average ramp time for an outside SDR? And my colleague Jeremy Wiggett is somewhere around here, who's a senior director in the SDR business. But we have a training program that I think takes them from hire through boot camp, through training, live on the phone within 60 days would be my guess. Jeremy can, if he's here, give me the exact number, but it's a very fast ramp for the SDRs. They have an assigned mentor in role, and there's ongoing training that's available to them, both through LMS and stand and deliver type. And so a lot of it is on the job training, but they already have their sights on BDR. Right? And so they know what the skill gaps are, and so they're already sort of seeking out mentors and the opportunity to understand what the path to BDR looks like and how to excel. Thanks for the question. Any final questions? Okay, great. So A couple thoughts, just final thoughts. Number one, Salesforce has a sales thought leadership website called Quotable, which I encourage you to go to, which is Salesforce and non-Salesforce content. And if you're a Salesforce customer or not, your Salesforce account executive would be more than happy to sit down with you and do a best practices session. It's a big part of what we encourage our AEs to do, share what we do internally, and hopefully help drive further adoption of the platform. And then finally, Dreamforce is our big conference, which is in November in San Francisco, so we encourage all of you to think about coming out to Dreamforce. So thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.